Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meticulous Talks on May 2nd. I am cursedchords,
And I'm Hithroc.
and it is a fast turnaround for us. Only 1 week since our last stream.
Yep. But it seemed like our schedule aligns with online cones, so we decided to shift it a little bit.
Yep, so that we're not getting every other stream blocked by a tournament, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you intend to participate or not, Hithroc, but certainly intend to watch, if little else.
I'm going to participate,
Okay, fair enough.
or at least.
Well, yeah, I'll probably. I actually haven't checked. Is it the same thing as last time, or is it just a constructed tournament?
I don't remember. I just remember the score. I think it will still have a draft.
Okay then. Well, the draft was plenty fun last time, so I'll probably be participating in both then.
Yep.
In any event, today we have one solitary spoiler that was released over the course of the past week. And then after that, our feature presentation, as it were, which will be a discussion about card design, specifically the property of elegance, which we'll get to and define and such later on. So, let's get to it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not, like, there was no comment given about Smolder here as to whether we've moved into a stage where the spoilers are now properly finalized. So I'm going to assume that it's same as it was before. That mechanically this is pretty much solid, but minor changes may be coming in the future.
Yeah. I think
Regardless,
that's a fair assumption.
yeah. Regardless, the primary reveal, as it were, with this card is the existence of this cheerleader sort of micro mechanic, where apparently we're going to have a bunch of cards with the cheerleader trait, and they're all going to work together with each other.
Yeah. Or it's gonna be like a horizontal trait, where only one card has it.
I mean, that has happened before. Can't say that's unprecedented. Something tells me not, though.
Yeah, the probably the card's text, which requires it to have a different name to work.
Yeah. So, in any event, we have one cheerleader here in orange. Seems reasonable to assume, based on what we know, that I think there's going to be at least a couple of pink ones. And then you've got Ocellus, could be purple, has been purple before.
Yeah.
Probably
I don't
looking at
remember which students were cheerleaders in that episode.
Smolder, Yona, Ocellus, and
Yeah.
then the two ponies. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I think Commentary's Magic had like a drawing stream where Ara was drawing a cheerleader outfit for Silver Stream. So I would guess that would also mean that there's a cheerleader Silver Stream.
Okay. So that means we're probably looking at most of the colors. Thank you, Smithers. There's your names for the two ponies.
Yeah, with the pony, yeah.
Which means that any cheerleader deck, well, it'll either have only a couple different cheerleaders, or it'll be multicolor. We'll see how useful it'll be to have all of them, per se. That'd be interesting if there was some effect that's like if you have all the cheerleaders in play, you get something special.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
I guess the one thing that struck me that I was thinking about before the stream is just because I expected there to be at least some pink support for cheerleaders. It might be interesting to have this card be sort of like if the deck was run with the Pinkie Pie main, you like discard this card early to her and then bring it back with like tender taps or surprise summoning or something later, and that'd be the way you primarily use it. But that's all speculation, depending on what the other cheerleaders look like.
Yeah, but it does. So the thing is, this is kind of an entry card. It's one rare card, 2 for 2, and competitive 1. It's just like Smolder we had in Friends Forever, except with extra text. And given that this text is kind of basic, like it's opponent discards a random card with a condition, I would assume other colors are kind of the same. Like they would have the condition of having another cheerleader friend
Mm-hmm.
and something basic for that color. Like for pink, it could be draw a card or something like that.
Right. Now that I think about it, Mulder, Ellis, Fiona. If there's Silverstream in there too, then that's 6. Is it potentially a full cycle?
Yeah, maybe for each color, like it makes sense to have a cycle of these cards of one rack for every color.
Mm-hmm. That would mean that Silverstream is probably the pink one, and Ocellus the purple, Yona the yellow, and then white and orange covered. Sorry, white and other color? Blue, covered by the 2 ponies.
Yeah. Unless Aura draws in cheerleader outfit over Gallus. I'd
Yeah.
like to see Gallus in cheerleader outfit.
You know, honestly, given that he's Silverstream, that would mean that they could potentially have it be a student 6 cycle that are all cheerleaders. That's another possibility.
Yep. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Anyway, regardless, there's not a whole lot to actually say here that's not pure speculation, given that we don't know what else is coming up. So
Yeah.
that
But we
was
do know that there's a new trait now.
yeah, you know that. Okay, so with that little preamble out of the way, move on to the main topic, which is elegance. So, I guess just to define some terms to start and explain a little of the context of why we want to talk about this. I have a bit of a interest in card design. Been thinking about cards and new designs and stuff over the course of the past little while. Just to make note, this stream is going to be entirely past designs. I'm not going to talk about any speculation, so that if there's, I know commentaries Magic guys like to come here from time to time, and they have to stay away from that stuff. So, gonna keep it all to the past. But elegance is this property that exists in design broadly, but in terms of cards, can essentially be defined as cards that are kind of simple to get your head around, and yet very versatile, very powerful, can be used for lots of different things later on down the line. I found this beautiful little summary on the internet that defined elegance as having these 3 properties: simplicity, whereas to say that there isn't a whole lot to understand. It's very clean, I guess, is the word that gets used sometimes. Coherence, meaning that all the elements work together. There's nothing that contradicts another piece of it. And then power, which can also be construed to mean versatility. Being able to do lots of things with it once you figure out how it works. And so we're going to go through a few examples, and it's worth pointing out that when we say a card is inelegant, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Elegance is not a design constraint on these sets. It's a nice to have, not a need to have, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know I'm going to use a couple of examples from Leaders and Legends, and I don't want Commentaries Magic guys to think I'm calling their cards bad.
Yeah, we're not dissing anything here. We're just reviewing, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, there's two, well, I was able to think of two good examples why elegance is something that you want when you're designing a card. And they both essentially come down to the impression that people get when they see it for the first time. When you see a card for the first time, you never want that initial impression to be one of confusion, be one where people like kind of look at and like, not even sure what that does. Like the purpose should be clear from the start. And then the second point is, you see cards for the first time usually in two ways. Either, well, three, I guess, given the way that spoilers work these days. Either someone drops it in Discord, or I guess you don't open packs anymore, but you see it, come out of a pack, or I guess you're doing one of Hithroc's drafts or whatever, and it suddenly shows up. Or, and this is the main one that I'm trying to get to, your opponent plays one against you in some match, and you have to look at it, okay, what does this do, right? And so the faster that you can get through that process of, can I see that card, what does it do, yada yada yada, that cuts down on essentially time spent not playing the game, which is, you always want to maximize the amount of time spent playing the game while playing the game. So that's useful to have.
Cough, cough, flurry heart.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't have Flurry Heart here in the examples. But yeah, she's probably a pretty great example of, I guess, lack of simplicity is probably the big one there. There's a lot of interpretation in her text.
Yeah, she's very ambiguous
Mm-hmm.
in her text. It's not clear what exactly she does and how she works.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it is clear that what she does, but it's not clear how she works exactly.
Precisely. Yeah. It's a case of like, it comes down, and I think most people can kind of read the card and say, okay, I have a pretty good idea of what it's happened. But like, usually the first time it activates, there's this confusion about what exactly it means. And and it's also fair to say that like it gets into a lot of ambiguity around what you would naively expect versus what it actually does. Like, for example, the fact that you have to roll for the opposing home as a one possible location, even though you would never expect that to be a logical.
Yeah, and the card itself doesn't indicate that in any way. It doesn't make it clear.
Mm-hmm. And then once we start talking about simultaneous moves and such, yeah. Smithers. How long did Sim take again to write the complete rulings for multiple flurries? I mean, I wish Pages were here. He would be the guy who'd know that, probably. But it was a long time, I think. Well, you're like the kind of expert on Flurry Heart too, right, Hithroc?
I will not say that. But I mean, it just came in one of the rules updates. Like, there has been this mysterious existing ruling how everyone played, right? But it wasn't actually printed in the rules or like really written anywhere how exactly she works. People just knew or asked the judge, right? And eventually it was just added to the rules. And there was that update document that explained every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to say how much time was spent on making that rule, because most of them already existed, just not in the written form.
Yeah. One could, I guess, say, Flurry was a defender's card, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For a rough note, one could just take the time from defender's release till the time the rules got published.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a process. That we all can say for sure. Okay. So I guess we're just going to go through each of the sort of pillars one by one here. First one being simplicity. Got an excellent example of a very simple card on the left and a very complicated card on the right. Luna was slightly before your time, Hithroc, but
yeah,
as someone who joined up during Carolot Nights, I fully remember seeing this card for the first time and not really getting it at first, and then kind of going back and looking at my binder that night and still having to read through it 3 or 4 different times to fully process what exactly was going to happen versus the single sentence on the left that sort of, well, what's there to say? They wanted to move a character. Oh, there you go. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it functionally just kind of goes without saying that you want, well, yeah, you don't want to have cards that require multiple minutes to properly process.
Yeah.
Through your head.
So what makes me wonder is why Luna even has such a complicated condition. Like, her purpose is clear, right? She's like a way to find events continuously, like, because she turns over and then you can turn her over back, find another event, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is gated behind this very elaborate condition where you reveal the top card and you reveal a card from your hand, and if it has higher power, you draw that card and you flip this main over. That's so elaborate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I guess if the purpose of the card is merely to act as that repeatable event tutor, then the the secondary gate is just kind of auxiliary and where most of the complexity comes from too.
Yeah. For Pegasus Chariot, the only thing I want to point out is that, like, to new players, and sometimes, like, I didn't see it at first when I saw that card. It might not be clear that it also lets you move opposing characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because it says to move a character, and 90% of the cards usually, like, when you have this sort of ability, they usually just work on just your characters or just opposing characters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the 2 cards I know that affect both characters in one piece of text.
Yeah, the other one, shoot.
The other one is the pink, blue, Rainbow Dash, and Pinkie Pie. When they enter play,
yes.
you can move 3 random characters, including opposing.
Yes, that's right.
I didn't even know that until someone played that against me. It's like, wait, that's not how it works. And yeah, read the card.
It's true. Yeah, we're so used to, as you say, virtually every time that's been done before, it's specified. Move a friendly character, move a opposing character, and certainly by default we expect that unless it says move an opposing character, then it's friendly because the move action is generally friendly.
Yeah. But it is like lack of this word, specifying word, makes the card simpler because there's less text by one word. It also increases the power because there's no restriction on what you can move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this text, even though it might be not clear at first, is better than just having like two abilities, one to move your and another one to move opposing.
Yes.
While that will be clear on the first impression, it'll be much more complicated text.
Yeah, and probably needlessly so.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We, I guess, just to talk about a few others, we mentioned Flurry already, being a pretty good example of a pile of text on a card. Events generally fall into the second, or rather the left-hand side of the page, because events usually just kind of tell you what to do and you do it, and that's that.
Yeah.
Although often, we actually mentioned this earlier in the week as we were talking about it, similarly require some degree of interpretation and knowledge of the rules. One of the cards that I've often considered to be like a really elegant design is Interdimensional Portal, the simple line of text that enables so much complexity hidden beneath the surface, but also does require some knowledge of what exactly you can do with that in order to understand how good it can be.
Yeah. Like when I started playing the game, I didn't know that you could put the character anywhere, and I didn't realize that it triggers enters play abilities. Even though that's a clear one, I should have realized that, but I didn't. And I was like, okay, pay 2 to do nothing. And even if I knew that you could put a character somewhere else, it's still just like moving them. And the triggering enters play is the big one there that I missed.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the same time, you can't really expect people to understand cards when they don't know anything about the game pretty much.
Yeah, I think there's a base level of understanding that's required, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't necessarily like. You can. It's actually an interesting question of like, uh, who the target audience is for any particular design. Whether because you probably want to design some cards for the very novices who will understand the utility and the power right away.
Yeah.
But you also do want to have some cards like, say, I think Fireworks is a pretty good example, where you really have to think about it for a moment before you realize what it's actually for and what it can actually do for you. Excuse me. Like it's you look at it at first and you think, oh well, that's certainly doing something, but how how can I use it?
Yeah. I mean, we do have a lot of like simple, powerful cards, which don't have a very complicated text, but like Night Glider overpowered. A pretty powerful card, and the text is extremely simple.
Mm-hmm.
If you win the face-off by 5 or more, you get 2 points.
Mm-hmm. I would point out a card like Meadowbrook as well.
Yeah. And then there's Rescue Party. Its power comes from literally power. It's 6 power for 480, and the text is also pretty simple. So I think we do have a pretty good amount of cards that are easy to understand for pretty much everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think if I explain the basic rules to some novice and show them Rescue Party, they'll know what it does without any additional elaboration.
Yeah, precisely. As Werefrog mentioned in the chat, the distinction between Timmy, Johnny, Spike. I'm actually not familiar with the Vorthos term. That one is new to me.
And me too. But I know the first 3 one.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and first impressions are a pretty classic example with those three. Okay. Vorthos is flavor gamer apparently.
That's fair.
Yeah. And so yeah, whether sometimes you want to have a card like I think Meadowbrook again is probably a pretty great example, or yeah, Rescue Party precisely. That's the big effect that the Timmy sees and says, "Aha! Card's just gonna wreck when I play it."
Yeah.
And then Fireworks is the Johnny card. That does something really cool and interesting, but not necessarily immediately useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another card like that would be similar to Plexus.
Yeah, exactly. Really cool, unique effect that to take full advantage of it requires some thought and some planning.
Mm-hmm. The recent example for that would be Sonic Rainboom, I think, because that one gives a lot of options of what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you see it first time, at least when I saw it first time, I was like, oh, there's so much I can do with it, but what exactly can I do with it?
Yeah. I mean, it's those cards are kind of interesting because cards like Sonic Rainboom are necessarily on their own not great, right? You need to have another event with it to take it to its full potential. And so necessarily asks the question of, well, what event are you going to play with it?
Yeah. And for many people, the answer would be Surprise Party.
Turned out, yes. Turned out that was the case. Okay.
Can you, one moment, can you recall any other cards with super complicated text like Luna?
Super complicated, eh?
Yeah.
Because
I'm thinking about it, and I guess the closest thing that comes to mind is the super rare Cutie Mark Crusaders from Marks in Time. Those have a lot of text.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about like the super rare silver stream from, was that Leaders or Friends
Forever?
Yeah, the one that makes dilemmas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reminder text on that. Unfortunately, Royal Archive doesn't let you search by number of words in game text. Just looking at SRs is probably.
That silver stream did have a lot of reminder text, but I think that's because she did something kind of novel.
Mm-hmm.
Putting problems into players' dilemmas is something the game has never seen before.
Oh, okay. What about? Let me see here if I can find it again. Mention Flurry. Magic Arena is actually pretty convoluted.
Oh yeah, that's fair. It's my favorite card in the game. I should know it. It's pay 1. You look at the top card. You name the number. Opponent says true or false. If that number is the actual number of the card, and if you win, you get free AT, and if they win, you banish the card. Yeah, it's a lot of text. And the effect by itself is not all that great, but I do love the mind games behind it.
Mm-hmm. True. I guess like a lot of the mind game cards, like Sphinx as well, got a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was Simplicity. Oh, right. That's a good point, actually, there, Smithers. Our Inspire card from Leaders and Legends, the Mr. and Mrs. Hoofington. 2 keywords, and the rest of the card is reminder text, essentially.
Yeah, but most of this is inspired, right?
Yeah. Inspired was I mean, for what it's worth, right? It was covered by 1 keyword, but it was a pretty complex ability.
Yeah. Well, the main reason it's complex is because it's not like Meticulous. Most of the complexity of this word comes from the fact that it can stack with itself.
Right.
So a lot of words are dedicated to explain that. Is that like if you have more than one inspired on the board, they actually like combine into one.
Good point. Yeah. Which that's I guess more of a rules design situation than a card design one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So next up is coherence. The idea that the pieces of the constituent pieces of a design should all be kind of pointing the same direction versus potentially pointing off in different directions. So have Flash Magnus over there on the left, and the kind of principle is that he's got 3 abilities and they're all related to movement. And so you kind of can figure out right away. It's like, oh, movement, movement, movement. Okay, I want to move this guy, and it's better when I do, basically.
Yeah.
It just kind of fits together in your head really well versus Twilight Sparkle and Silverstream over there on the left. Meticulous, eccentric, and enters playability. Yeah, doesn't have quite the same coherence. That doesn't quite fit together properly into a card that you immediately say, oh yeah, that's what this thing does. And honestly, a lot of the 2-color, well, I mean, it's a mixed bag in general across the 2-color cards. Some of them have a nice fit together structure, and some of them are kind of like this one, where you can kind of see, okay, that one's Twilight, that one's Silverstream, and then this one in the middle is kind of combine the
Mixed.
two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there are a lot of coherent multicolor cards like Spitfire.
Mm-hmm.
She has a lot of abilities that synergize with each other. And well, she does have a lot of abilities in general, but she also like fits into blue and pink as well, and what usually blue and pink want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Except experienced, I guess. But that was like a new keyword, so. Experience also fits with the thing because you want her to be in discard pile because you draw a card for it. So all
Yeah.
these things actually like go well with each other.
Yeah, that's why it can often be kind of difficult to properly define this term because there just needs to be some concept in common, right? Like I was looking at, what was it? That's the purple orange spike from Friends Forever, where like it's like, okay, all 3 of his abilities have to do with face-offs, and so you just have that one piece that kind of draws everything together, and okay, I want to use this card when there's face-offs going on. And well, the universe of possible concepts that can bind cards together is pretty much infinite. So there are lots of different ways to do it.
I think also like cards that are like, so the card doesn't have to be coherent with itself, right? But also with its color.
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes see like a purple card with an eccentric. Well, now it's more common, but when we just got Defenders of Equestria, right, we've got the Twilight entry purple card, which was eccentric 1, which was very off color, and I think that also kind of like ruins the coherence because usually you want colors to, like cards in one color to do similar things and work well with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And not doing that is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does like go at the cost of losing coherence with the color.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out we've been talking pretty much exclusively about text so far, but the the card is the complete package, and so everything on it should, in theory, work together as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess like one card that I was thinking about over the course of this week that I still haven't been able to properly figure out is Grogar. Um, 3 abilities: villain, the one that banishes himself, and then the one that gets him back from the banish pile. So they fit together in this concept of the kind of cycle back and forth from the banish pile. I guess
Yeah.
it's worth asking whether the card was simple enough to figure out at first, from your perspective.
Well, uh the thing is that I've been playtesting this set, so I've seen this card through many iterations.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I have like a clear view. Okay, I don't really have a first impression of this card
Okay, that's fair.
because I've seen it change over time.
Okay. I guess from what I can say, um, he's not like immediately clear from the start, but also not too terribly difficult. You can kind of get a sense of what exactly you want to do with it right away. Uh, Somewhat similar to like Portal before, the complexity of Grogar is hiding beneath the surface. Generally, like once you understand what the abilities do, you've barely scratched the surface still of all the various things you can do with them, which is probably good. I think, like that. You know, it's not bad that there is that much complexity because the complexity is, as I say, underneath the surface. It's all that's the kind of stuff that you discover through play. You're thinking
Yes.
about cards and you're like, oh, I can do this too.
Yes, and discovering things like that is great. Feels
Exactly.
always great. It feels like you have gamed the system.
Precisely, yeah. And of course, it's always good to have cards with that kind of high skill cap that can, um, yeah. So
Yeah.
exactly. When you know all the things you can do with them, as you say, you just kind of feel like you've figured it all out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then moving on to the third category. I called it power in the early slide, and that was the word that came off of the Stack Exchange answer I was reading. But as I was thinking about it more and more, I realized that versatility is probably the better word to use when we're talking about cards, because it's really the ability to do a lot with it once you've figured it out. Rogar, I was just talked about last slide. Great example. And so over here I've got Selena over on the left, card that well, in recent years has been used for all manner of things. It's got the ability to set yourself up for face-offs. Now it's got the same day delivery synergy off of this set. Um, yeah, and then versus over on the right, Cadence is really just good at one specific thing, which is banishing stuff that would be dismissed, essentially. And I guess there's an interesting sort of tension between these two, right? Because these two being coherence and versatility, because we just mentioned coherence is the ability to sort of look at a card and immediately see what it's for, and then versatility is the ability for it to do multiple things. And so getting both of those together in the same package is probably going to be a tension in design.
Yeah.
But when done properly, it gives you the whole package.
Yeah, but so I think you're right in changing like power to versatility because while Cadence does just one thing, she's not very versatile, right? She can still be pretty powerful, and power is a very relative thing in card game in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like Middlebrook is a very powerful card, but not very versatile, right? She can only do one thing, but she does it really well.
Yeah.
And if that's not the thing you need, then she's a dead card. She's just a free friend for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, as you say, power. Sorry, let me organize my thoughts here for a second. Power and versatility are pretty much orthogonal uh, properties, right? That
Yeah.
there's a need to have, as we said earlier, the Timmy cards and the cards like Daff and Meadowbrook and such that are very good at what they do, and then also a need for cards that are able to be used in a variety of circumstances.
Yeah. I don't think a lack of versatility in the card is necessarily a bad thing, yeah.
Sorry, did you say it is, or my apologies?
I don't think lack of versatility is necessarily a bad thing
Exactly,
for a
yes.
card.
Yeah,
It's just the way cards are, I suppose. Some are versatile and some are not.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where, if I bring up a card like Cadence here and say, oh, it's lacking versatility, it's not elegant, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just...
Yeah. But when this versatility can be achieved through simplicity and coherence, that's pretty great.
Exactly. That's...
Because, like, Luna from our first slide of the cards is not a versatile card either for amount of text she has. She does just one thing. She searches for events.
Okay, Werefrog asks about songs and how they figure in. So songs in general have a fair amount of text because they usually have 3 separate abilities. Their, I guess, coherence for a song usually boils down to flavor, right? Because generally speaking, the 3 abilities are... Well, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, I think coherence for a song matters for what kind of decks you'd want this song to use in.
Yeah.
Because so it's gonna work as an example of a less coherent song than Friends Are Always There, right? Because it's gonna work as like a control ability, another control ability, and the third one is an aggro ability, which most of the decks don't ever use, except in that one time when we played the game.
Yes.
If someone doesn't remember what it's gonna work does, the first mode is to banish a friend with 3 or more power. The second one is to bring a troublemaker back from discard pile and to play face up. And the third one is to reduce confront requirements of problems by 2. And the third one doesn't usually work with the first 2 in a way that you don't usually need it in the decks that you would play with the first 2 modes. And it works the other way around. If you're like doing aggro stuff, you probably don't want to bring a troublemaker back from your discard pile most of the time. So I think that's where coherence comes into play for songs.
Right. Yeah, you want the decks that use the card to be able to use all 3 of its modes, if possible, and that necessarily makes the card more valuable. And then as far as versatility goes, it again, well, kind of comes down to what each individual mode does. Some of them necessarily are open-ended, like it's going to work troublemaker, can slot into a variety of potential plays depending on what kind of troublemakers you've got sitting around. Whereas others are more finely honed and kind of do their one thing.
Yeah, like Friends Are Always There. Dismissing a resource is just a one thing. Putting 3 critters into play, also one thing. Not very, like, can't really have versatility in such ability to just do the thing. And I think the last one is take control of a troublemaker. And that's not very versatile by itself either, because you're really constrained by what troublemakers are in play.
Yeah, pretty much.
But songs have this like intrinsic versatility by the fact that they have 3 abilities. Also, Smithers mentions that Zikor from Defenders of Equestria is a more coherent card than Twilight, even though both of them have eccentric. Zikoro actually works with that eccentric because if the opponent doesn't confront her problem, you get 118.
Yeah. It takes something that purple is known for, quite in its color identity, the AT gain, of course, and also the preventing confronts part. And I guess, yeah, uses that to tie in the eccentric and make it useful. I guess to go back to the example you used with Twilight, it's much clearer to someone who sees the card for the first way. It's like, yes. That.
Yeah, you see why eccentric is there and why
Mhm.
it is useful to you.
Yeah. Okay. So, we talked about simplicity, coherence, versatility. I wanted to find at least a couple of cards that kind of bring the whole package together. And this, I guess, is my compliment to Commentary's Magic, because Pinky Sense is over there on the left. Two abilities that are both relatively easy to understand. They work together, quite cleanly. Dovetail right at the join, and well, it's gone in a lot of different decks so far. I know, and people use it as protection. People use it as ways to stack face-offs. Yeah, it has been served as a lot of possible roles already as well.
Yeah, it is a very versatile card. And it has only two abilities, which are super simple. And they also work with each other. So we have simplicity, coherence, and versatility. All three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, not biased at all, but Celestia over there on the right.
It's Celestia, so that's why it's there.
Yeah, of course. Also relatively simple. The text. So, like, friends, admittedly, with only one ability, it's hard to talk about coherence sometimes, because, well, we can't talk about how the abilities work together, but we can talk about, as you mentioned with Purple and Twilight before, how well they tie into the colors. Certainly nowadays, now that Yellow having all the dilemmas, and especially with the new Fluttershy as well, Yellow has this synergy with problems entering play quite a bit of it. So that works.
This card fits really well there.
Mm-hmm. And can be used to enable all manner of shenanigans with dilemmas, with problems, with movement triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To be fair, I guess you can't talk about all the different kinds of decks that it goes in, because Yellow does aggro. Like this.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
But even in Yellow control, you'd probably want this card because of the value it gives you. What about versatility, though? I'm not sure this card, as versatile in the X, it just does one thing. Like, compare this card to Pinky Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Pinky Sense is miles away on versatility. Sure, you can do different things with movement. Like, you can have triggers of movement or choose what friends you move and where.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not super versatile. It's just as versatile as any other move.
I suppose that's a fair argument. Yeah. Restrained on the trigger and such. Well, you're free to suggest your own if you like.
Oh, like a card I really like design and strikes all points.
Sorry to put you on the spot. You get plenty of time to think. Hello, Pages, in the chat, by the way. Good to see you.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm not sure if something like Desert Road would count, because on one hand, it's not very versatile, it does one thing, but on the other hand, a lot of things it turns off is a lot of decks want to remove that card because it stops what they're doing overall, because a lot of other decks rely on friends entering play and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like on one, like there's pretty much never a game scenario where you have Desert Road in hand and you don't want to put it into play, unless it's like 3 AT is too much, but that's the cost problem, right? So I would say it is a versatile card.
Yeah, maybe we ought to reconsider the definition that we're using for versatility then. Like, we talk about simplicity as meaning easy to understand, easy, like not confusing, essentially.
Yeah.
Coherence as the ability to kind of see the purpose of the card right away, and versatility perhaps is then not so much the number of things a card can do, but the number of situations in which it is useful.
Sure, but that doesn't exclude Desert Road. I'm not sure if you wanted to exclude it.
I was trying to make an argument for why Desert Road is good.
Oh, okay, yeah. Another card I think is that would like kind of strikes all points is Bodyguard. They have a super simple ability. Well, despite like other than the fact that when they leave play, they put a unicorn anyway. That's not clear, but that's like a little part of the card. That's not what it does. It has two abilities that work well with each other. One triggers off friends leaving play, and the other one is
a way
retirement
to make friends
engine,
leave play.
Right? Yeah. Make friends leave play, exactly. And it works both well with pink and white. Pink really likes to remove friends, so it's coherent within its color as well. And well, I'm not sure if it's as versatile though as like something like Desert Road and Pinky Sense. But Pinky Sense is pretty up there. Like it's hard to put something close to Pinky Sense that is not a portal.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we in terms of useful situations, we keep coming back to Grogar. Also very good on that front, but misses out a little bit maybe on the simplicity side.
So here's a little question, right?
Sure.
We have a main Tempest Shadow, right? And she has a very simple ability. It is a very versatile ability, and it is coherent at least with its color, right? Because Troublemaker's purple. But I do find it a very boring card. So what does it miss? Is it because it's just your main, which is supposed to do something like throughout the game in its one-time effect? Or is it something else?
Well, for what it's worth, to preface, I kind of left mains out of this whole slideshow in general because I think they're to some extent different. Like there's different design constraints on mains, as you mentioned, them serving as kind of the cornerstone of decks. We can, I guess, think about if it's as you mentioned the possibility that you want mains to keep on working over the course of the game, then in theory all the Sequestria mains should qualify under the same qualification.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Skystar would probably... I think the boring comes from not having the boosted side ability. Because Skystar is just, you just flip it, get 2 tokens, and that's it. That's the entire main. It's really good, but it's not too fun to use.
Pages makes the suggestion that the ability has been somewhat artificially narrowed by the meta.
Yeah, that's fair. There's not like as many troublemakers as you can bring. You're probably, as he said, choose one or the other, being Grubber and Mimics. And sometimes double diamond in very rare scenario, and I really like that. But I think I really like that about double diamond rather than
that's fair to say, yeah.
Tempest.
Yeah. I mean, that's to talk about the sequestered mains for a little bit. They all sort of have the quality of being relatively narrow in their application because they are designed to do one thing, presumably very early on, turn 1 or turn 2, and you, by virtue of sort of game balance, you can't have that thing be too good, or else
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be way too good.
Yeah.
With the possible exception of Capper, who kind of, I know no one thinks about that card, but is kind of designed around maybe flipping back and forth a few times over the course of the game.
Yeah. But Sequester didn't bring us the troublemaker that can do that.
Yeah. Okay. Now that is the end of the slides that we had prepared.
Yep.
And I think it's become relatively obvious over the last minute of silence that we are out of ideas and things to say. So, let me just quickly get the YouTube link so I can throw it in chat. There we go, copy message link. Yeah, obviously we appreciate everyone for making it out here today on a off week. I don't know how much anyone puts their schedules around our streams, but it is a off week anyway, and thank you for coming. Next week will be online con again.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at the schedule. I assume it'll be something very similar to what was done last week. Was it really
I'm
only
pretty
last
sure
week?
it was a month ago.
Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. Yeah.
But yeah, well, 3 weeks ago rather. I think it has exactly the same times as the last time. I don't remember if there's a draft or not. That's the only thing I'm not unsure of.
Okay. But yeah, it being a core event, I've got things I want to try out, and
Me too. Have one deck,
see.
which I wanted to bring to BabsCon, but alas.
Oh, hang on a second. Your combo deck is Harmony. I'm trying to guess here.
Oh yeah, you haven't seen that deck.
Oh, I haven't seen the deck.
No, you haven't seen the deck.
I haven't seen the deck, so it's not the usual thing.
I've never played it anywhere yet. So nobody has seen the deck yet.
Interesting. But it is still purple, right?
It has purple in it.
Of course it does.
It has some purple in it.
Anyway, okay. I'll way to give yourself some free publicity here. Everyone is excited, I'm sure. Smithers confirmed for us in chat that yes, there is draft Saturday, instructed Sunday, presumably same times as before.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll hope to see you all there. In the meantime, again, thanks for coming out. We do post all of our streams to YouTube. And there's, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Oh, it gave me the message link.
What is that scary link?
That is the link to the message, not the link. Okay. I guess PSA for people using Discord. If you have a message that is a link, and you want the address, it's copy link, not copy message link.
Yes.
Ugh.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess. There we go.
Hooray, YouTube.
There we go. Yeah, so this stream probably usually takes me about an hour to get everything uploaded, and you'll be able to see everything there as well, going all the way back to when we started, which was the Defenders spoilers, was when Meticulous Talks first got started. I just put everything into a playlist as well, so if you want to watch it all from the beginning, well, easy, I guess.
That's a lot of hours, though.
It is a lot. Yeah, it is quite a bit. Otherwise, until next time, I've been cursedchords.
I'm being Hithroc.
Next stream will be on the normal schedule 2 weeks from now, where we'll have results and hopefully more spoilers to talk about.
Yep.
Otherwise, see you then.
Bye.